Still, with the flag of sackcloth for humanity, and with the help of Robert Spencer of Jihad Watch, this is Mel McGinnis with an edition of the Sophie Scholl Monologue. Israel, Hamas, peace, question mark. Is it really peace? From what I hear, President Trump, in this peace deal, said, blessed are the peacemakers. But there's another verse that says from Jeremiah 6:14, peace, peace, when there is no peace. Why do I say that? Peace deal was made, I think, on October the 8th and October the 9th, early in the morning. Gazans were celebrating the peace deal by chanting, Kebar, Kebar, Ya Yehud, which means a call for the slaughter of Jews. The fact that they're chanting this is clear indication that there really is no peace. And it seems like our Western leaders will not pay attention to that. Because Islamic tradition holds that Muhammad led a Muslim force against the Kebar Jews, which was inhabited by the Jews, and the Muslims overtook and conquered them and their territory. We need to know the history before we conclude this is a peace deal. Or is it more like a truce? Or is it just a deal between hostages? Deal for hostages. But back to Kebar. Muhammad agreed to let the people of Kebar go into exile, allowing them to keep as much of their property as they could carry. The Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, however, commanded them to leave behind all their gold and silver. He had intended to expel all of them, but some, who were farmers, begged him to allow them to stay if they gave half their yield annually. Muhammad agreed. I will allow you to continue here so long as we would desire. He warned them. If we wish to expel you, we will expel you. They no longer had any rights, and they did not depend upon the goodwill of Muhammad and the Muslims. And indeed, when the Muslims discovered some treasure that some of the Kebar Jews had hidden, he ordered the women of the tribe to be enslaved and seized the land of the proprietors. A hadith, that is a tradition, a history book of Islam, said that the Prophet had their warriors killed, their offspring and women taken as captives. Thus, when modern-day Muslims invoke Kebar, they are recalling an aggressive surprise raid by Muhammad, which resulted in the final eradication of the once considerable Jewish presence in Arabia. To the jihadists, Kebar means the destruction of the Jews and the seizure of their property by the Muslims. So the Gazans, after the deal was reached, celebrated by chanting, Kebar, Kebar, Ya Yehud, a call for the slaughter of the Jews. So appreciate what Robert Spencer does out of Jihad Watch. Go to his website. You'll see article after article, not only keeping you informed about what's happening in the Middle East, but gives you the background, the historical background, and how the aspect of Islam always has to be considered. We need to consider this because the peace deal is no cause for celebration. It's simple. It won't bring peace. Maybe a hostage deal, but not long-term peace. I hope I'm proven wrong. Because it's based on a fundamental misunderstanding or willful refusal to understand why Hamas is fighting and what the group is all about. Hamas has no interest whatsoever in establishing a strong, durable, and everlasting peace, except on its own terms, which would require the total destruction of Israel and its replacement with a Sharia law. What Trump, along with other leaders of the Western world, failed to understand is the hardcore Islamic nature of Hamas. Hamas follows Islamic law. Islamic law prohibits the establishment of peace between a Muslim entity and a non-Muslim one in an indefinite basis with, say, two states living side by side and respecting each other's right to exist. The imperative of Islamic conquest encompasses every non-Muslim entity, particularly the Jews. Muslims must fight unbelievers until religion is all for Allah. Is that what you're seeing in Israel? No. If Israel's religion is not for Allah, the jihad against it will continue. What's more, Israel is on land that Muslims must rule. Therefore, the Muslims have an imperative before Allah to drive them out from where they drove you out. Check out Quran 2:191. Yet, if all that is true, why is Hamas making peace at all? Because it is losing. Consider this passage from a manual of Islamic law. If Muslims are weak, a truce may be made for 10 years if necessary. For the Prophet made a truce. Note that this can only be done if Muslims are weak, so that they can gather strength to fight again, not so they can live peaceably with non-Muslims indefinitely. The same legal manual also quotes this verse from the Quran. So do not falter and cry out for peace when you have the upper hand. And Allah is with you, and He will not deprive you of your actions. Thus, Hamas would not be calling for peace at all if it felt it was in a position of strength. Interests that justify making a truce are such things as Muslims, or as Muslim weakness because of lack of numbers or material, or the hope of an enemy becoming Muslim. Here's the bottom line. Hamas is feeling the heat and wants this peace deal in order to regroup and emerge in a stronger position. The one certainty here is this, that there will not be a strong, durable, and everlasting peace, but that Hamas and or other Islamic jihadists will murder more Israelis and continue to try to destroy the Jewish state. Until you see Hamas throwing away their Qurans, disregarding their history and theology, what we're going to see is a short-term so-called peace deal. Because once they get their reserves built up once again, the strength that they had to a place where they had before, they're going to lay low And then, once that strength is once again achieved, they will be on the jihad again to remove the Jews from the river to the sea. And that's the way I see it. And I think people in the West need to understand it that way. They do not think like us. We need to understand how they think. And while I'm happy that these hostages are going to be returned, I'm not all that optimistic that there's going to be some long-term peace solution where the two can live side by side. I think that's dreaming without understanding what Islamic history, theology, and the Quran are all about. Well, unlike Tony Kornheiser of Pardon the Interruption, I cannot promise you I'll do better the next time. And unlike Tony, I'm going to wave the flag of sackcloth for humility. Again, I appreciate what Robert Spencer has written on Jihad Watch. Go to it, because there I think you'll see some very important information, knowledge, and understanding that we need to have as Westerners in a world that is so different from the Islamic one. Well, as a follower of Jesus, I definitely need Jesus. And hope on October the 14th, you're wearing red for Charlie Kirk Day. Do something bold, live boldly, and let the gospel of Christ be known.